Well, on September 11th, I arrived at my office downtown in Manhattan. I was the associate on staff at Trinity Wall Street for ministries at St. Paul's Chapel, or to put it shortly, the priest in charge of St. Paul's Chapel. I got to my office at 74 Trinity Place at about 8 o'clock that morning, getting ready for an event we had planned that day for the Trinity staff and for people from around the country who were in for the day, to hear a series of presentations from the Archbishop of Wales at that time, and who later became the Archbishop of Canterbury, still is, Rowan Williams, on the shape of a holy life. And at 8:45 we were supposed to have bagels and coffee with Rowan, and I was getting ready to head down to the studio for that event when the first plane hit the tower, the first tower. But, you know, we didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because, you know, we heard a loud crack and sirens were going off, but it's New York City. We hear that all the time. You know, it's part of the background noise of life in the city. But before long, papers started blowing by the windows in our office area. And, you know, the edges of the papers were burned, and it was really ominous. We wondered what's going on. Soon after that, a friend of mine, John Allen, went up the street to see what we could do to help out, assuming that, you know, maybe a little Cessna plane had hit the tower and they might need someone to help with logistics or triage or something. But on the way up the street, we got to almost the corner of Liberty and Church Streets, which is the streets directly bordering the South Tower, when the South Tower itself was hit by the second airplane. And at that point, it was pretty clear that something horrible was happening, and we literally had to run for our lives. You know, the glass and debris was falling, and people were running scared. People were bloody. They were covered in soot and ashes. It was really a horrible, horrible experience. The role of St. Paul's Chapel in the 9/11 experience is that, well, initially, you know, we didn't have anything going until a couple of days later, but St. Paul's Chapel is directly across the street from the World Trade Center site, and literally you could throw a rock from the cemetery at St. Paul's and hit Building 5 of the Trade Center. It was that close. When 9/11 happened, we were just horrified, and people were evacuating Lower Manhattan, so St. Paul's Chapel really didn't have a role on the day itself. But the next morning, I walked downtown from my apartment in Greenwich Village, about a mile and a half. Had to pass through all kinds of police checkpoints and military Humvees, and it really was a scary sight. It was a military zone. I was walking downtown expecting the whole way to see St. Paul's Chapel in rubble, because, you know, how could it be standing? It's a building that was built in 1766, right across the street. But when I got to right about where the City Hall of New York is, I saw the towers of St. Paul's, the spire still standing. It just really took my breath away. I couldn't believe it. I wept, and then I continued walking, and I went inside St. Paul's, and it was eerie in a way. It was covered in soot inside because one of the windows was open. So we had about a quarter-inch, half-inch of dust. But apart from that, not even a broken window. We lost a sycamore tree on the edge of the cemetery and took the brunt of the impact, but that was really about it. Of course, it was covered in debris and blown-apart computer monitors, the cemetery was, twisted level-or blinds, papers, photographs, frames. Really astonishing and eerie. When I saw that St. Paul's Chapel was still standing, you know, as I thought about that, there was a lot of talk about the miracle of St. Paul's, and it's miraculous, I think, that St. Paul's Chapel is still standing. But we also wanted to be careful not to insinuate that we're holier than anybody who died across the street. So we'd like to say that if we were spared, it was because we have a big mission to do. And we started trying to figure out what to do. I was really afraid that the building might have been compromised, so we didn't really do anything inside until a structural engineer checked it out. So initially we set up a cold drink and sandwich station on the corner of Broadway and VC Streets, and Broadway and Fulton Streets. And you know, we were flipping burgers on the grill and serving cold drinks as fast as we could. It was really quite extraordinary to be able to do anything to help out. There were issues because of the dust and debris in the air and all over the place, so we had some issues with the health department, but we were eventually able to resolve those and continue the ministry of serving food. You know, my mother always taught me that if someone is in trouble, you try to help them out. If they're hungry, you give them some food, or you try to make them comfortable. You try to inspire and encourage and uplift. And that was really the ministry that developed at St. Paul's Chapel. We had, before the end of the operation, we had some of the best restaurants in New York City doing meals for us, and we served over 500,000 meals by 8.5 months. Inside also we had massage therapy and chiropractors, podiatrists working around the clock, musicians playing 3 and 4 concerts a day, grief counselors, clergy. It was an amazing experience in which people from all walks of life came together with one purpose, and that was to support the community that was looking for survivors and ultimately seeking the remains of the dead. On 9/11, I was, of course, horrified and scared and shocked. And walking through the site after 9/11, doing last rites on body bags, you know, it was really overwhelming, seeing the pain on the faces of the men and women working in the site, feeling my own pain, feeling my own anger towards the people who did that to us. I kept asking, really, myself the question, how in God's name do we stop this cycle of violence and revenge? And at the time, at night, I was reading Bishop Tutu's book, No Future Without Forgiveness, and things began to click for me, that maybe forgiveness is an idea to embrace. It doesn't mean you let people off the hook for doing bad things, prosecute them to the fullest. It doesn't mean you can't defend yourself. It doesn't mean you can't pursue justice. You just do it with an energy that is based on justice and not revenge. So forgiveness began to, seeds of forgiveness were planted into my life. Father Michael Lapsley was with us one day, an Anglican priest from South Africa, one of the first white priests to stand against apartheid, who got a mail bomb that blew off both of his arms and took out one of his eyes. And I'll never forget standing at the altar with him as he elevated the host with those hooks that he has now, the prosthetic device, and broke the host in the Eucharist. And still gives me chills to remember that, because his sermon that day was all about moving from being a victim to living victoriously through the power of forgiveness. And then after the 9/11 experience was over, I had my own journey, my own spiral downward, and my own depression and my own anger about a lot of different things. And I heard the Nelson Mandela quotation that not to forgive is like drinking a glass of poison and waiting for your enemies to die from it. Found out I'd been drinking some of that poison. It tasted really good too, but it was still poison. It was still killing me. And that's really when I embraced this journey of forgiveness. Every day is its own opportunity and struggle. It's not a once and for all thing, but it's a lifestyle really that gives us more hope and resilience and more energy and a healthier attitude. So that's what I'm doing now. I helped start a nonprofit based on the Garden of Forgiveness in Beirut, Lebanon, the first Garden of Forgiveness. And we're trying to spread the idea that it's a good thing for communities to find alternatives to violence to solve and resolve their disputes. The exhibit here in the museum in Gaffney is such a tribute to the men and women who died on 9/11, but also to the responders. It's a tribute to their courage. It's a tribute to their commitment, their sacrifice. What we have here are banners that hung on the fence at St. Paul's Chapel that are the property of a young artist in Maine. Her name is Jessica Stammen. She was our artist in residence, so to speak. I asked her to give us something to put on the fence to encourage people. And she and her fellow students at Cooper Union College created a series of banners, which the Courage banner is one of those, and I think it became really the icon of the rescue movement. And it's a beautiful, beautiful banner, red background, blue letters, courage. And there's a little quotation by Annie Lamott on the right-hand side. It says that courage is fear that said its prayers. And that resonated powerfully with the rescue community. And this is a community I think we need to find ways to support today around the country, these communities, because they give so much of themselves sacrificially. So the exhibit here really is a tribute to that whole experience at 9/11 and the aftermath. But you know, the Roman god Janus, on whom we base our month of January, had two heads, one looking backwards and one looking forwards. So we want to look backwards at the past in this exhibit, but we also want to look forward. We want to look forward to creating a new future beyond the cycle of violence and revenge, a new future that is hopeful and empowering for people. And one of the ways we do that, and my mission now in life, is to talk about forgiveness as just one of the strategies to put on the menu for people to live healthier, wholesome lives. The exhibit has the banners, of course, as I mentioned, but also one of the real treasures here in the exhibit is the World Trade Center Memorial Chalice, created by Jessica Stammen, and it was made from steel from the World Trade Center site. And it's really a powerful icon of hope and healing for the world, for our nation, for our cities, our communities, in the aftermath of 9/11, trying to figure out and struggle to figure out who we are and who we're becoming. The base of the chalice is a root system which represents the tree at St. Paul's Chapel that was uprooted. The stem of the chalice is twofold, and it represents the Twin Towers. But the cup of the chalice is a hand, or is a set of hands holding the bowl of the chalice, representing God's love that holds us even in our pain and inspires us for our futures. So we have that. We have really wonderful local items on a wall that is an attempt to replicate the fence at St. Paul's Chapel. So local fire department guys and rescue guys and others have brought t-shirts and sweatshirts and hats and have placed them on the wall. So it's its own tribute to the fence at St. Paul's Chapel, but inspired locally and created locally. The fence was such a point of contact for the community that was so extraordinary. Although people were not allowed to come into St. Paul's Chapel if they weren't really connected to the rescue operation, they could come outside and really touch the hem of the garment of what was happening by putting things on the fence. And that fence represents that. We have a flag that was rescued from Ground Zero. We have different items of artwork all over the place. We have lots of photographs that are my photographs that I took at the site. So it's an exciting exhibit. We have the work of local artists too who were there and who have shared their gifts, like Dangerfield Ashton's offered some of his artwork for us to exhibit. So it's an experience. There's lots of things here to take in and lots of exhibits explaining what happened. You know, it's really important to be able to touch the authentic items that hung in the place. So this isn't a bunch of photographs of what happened. This is the actual stuff. You can actually come here and touch the Courage banner that became the icon of the rescue movement around the world. You can come here and you can see the other banners. You can touch the World Trade Center Memorial Chalice made from the actual steel from the World Trade Center site. If you get close to these banners, you can smell ground zero. It's tactile, it's real, and it's right here in Gaffney at the museum. They've done a marvelous job here, so I hope folks will come out and be a part of this and leave from this place being inspired. But it's also an invitation for people to come in and walk through this place and have their own experience of the community that emerged after 9/11 and to see, you know, how that might be inspiring for themselves as we move forward. 10th anniversary is a big year. It's a big year. It's a time for us to do some soul searching, and I hope this helps us do it. I want folks to come here and to take in this exhibit, but I want them to leave asking questions. How is it that we could become a community like this again without having to go through a disaster? How is it that we can be more intentional in our communities to be kind and compassionate and uplifting, encouraging, merciful? How is it that we work together like the folks in the aftermath of 9/11 worked together to create a community that was very special? Because ultimately, if it's only a community that emerged after 9/11 and is no more, then that's only one side of the head of Janus, you know, that's backwards. But looking forward to the future, what can we learn from this exhibit? What can we learn from that experience? And do we have the courage to embrace those ideas and pay them forward as we seek to be more intentional in our communities with each other, to be more intentional about caring and about mercy and about inspiring the youth? And how do we build community and real community? You know, that's what keeps me awake at night, and in a good way. And you know, at the end of the day, what's next is I'm working on forgiveness. South Carolina Educational Television was one of the sponsors of a documentary that features our work called The Power of Forgiveness. And I'm really excited about that work, and I'm excited about what the work of forgiveness can do for our communities.